All right, test 1, section 2, number 34. Looks like we got some transitional phrases and things like that. So on this one, I'm going to look at the sentence before number 34, which you would read anyway. It's kind of the whole first part of this passage. And then we'd read up to the end of that second sentence. So as you kind of go through this, what you're going to be doing is looking for the proper sort of transition. Now, to speed things up on this one, here's what's happening. The first portion of the sentence, it just kind of talks about, and I guess I can at least read it once. So, long viewed by many as the stereotypical useless major. We're talking about philosophy here. So, philosophy is now being seen by many students and prospective employers as, in fact, a very useful and practical major, offering students a host of transferable skills with relevance to the modern workplace. Now, in this next sentence in 34, it says, in broad terms, they're saying philosophy is the study of meaning and the values underlying thought and behavior. So what they're doing with this first statement, it says in broad terms, they're just kind of taking this entire subject of philosophy and trying to summarize it literally in 2 lines. That actually fits. It's not giving an example because we are just doing a broad definition of philosophy. I mean, they start talking about philosophy in the first sentence, but it comes down to how it's used in this second sentence. So it's not going to be for example because it's not giving an example. In contrast, it's not contrasting anything. It's kind of a positive trigger, if anything. They're both talking about philosophy. Nevertheless, again, doesn't fit either. 34 is going to be A, which is telling you that, again, we're doing a broad definition of philosophy. So that's going to be 34. 35, we have the next sentence, says, but more pragmatically, the discipline encourages students to analyze complex material, question conventional beliefs, and express thoughts in a concise manner. Speaking of the word concise, notice a lot of these ones are just going to be a little bit more wordy, whereas B says speaking in a more pragmatic way, or C says speaking in a way more pragmatically, is way too wordy because you can just say but more pragmatically. Is going to be a lot more clear and concise. And D says, but in a more pragmatic speaking way. Again, all these are too wordy. Hopefully you can kind of see that A is the most clear and concise answer. So that's what your answer is going to be for number 35. Number 36 says, because philosophy teaching students not what to think, but how to think. Now, hopefully that sounds terrible to you. Here we're comparing philosophy to teach. Teaching, teaches, whatever. Philosophy is singular. Okay, so we need a verb that goes with philosophy to also be singular. The singular version of that subject is going to actually have an S on the end. Remember that when you say verbs, the S's are singular. So like this guy jumps. Jumps is a singular verb. So in this case, teaches is going to be your answer for number 36. Again, we want to pick the singular verb, and that singular verb, as I said already, is going to be B for number 36. Number 37 says, which choice most effectively sets up the information that follows? Now, when you read these answer choices, you'll see words like consequently, therefore, notwithstanding, however. Obviously there's a little bit of transition here. So in 37, I want to read this sentence before and see or actually the information that follows. So I'm going to look at the sentence after and see what we get. So everything up to this point is talking about how philosophy is good. So what I want to do is read this sentence right here, a 1994 survey. I'm going to look at that and see what it says, and then we can kind of look at how we can set this up. Okay. So a 1994 survey concluded that only 18% of American colleges required at least one philosophy course. So that's kind of saying they may not think that philosophy is that important in the American colleges, at least. So this is a little bit different from what the first part of this passage has been stating. So I'm looking for some sort of negative trigger. And again, we want to see how it's going to be described as well. So as you go through your answers, you'd be checking each one. Now the one that's going to match here is going to be D. Here's why. First off, you see the however. And then let's check this out. Despite its many utilitarian benefits, so they're talking about all the benefits that philosophy can have in the workforce, colleges, we're talking about colleges here, have not always supported the study of philosophy. We're talking about colleges, and this is the one that does that. So in this case, we have that negative trigger. You can kind of see that right away, and then you will see that D kind of mentions what that next sentence is about to say. So 37 is going to be D. 38 says, it's kind of, look, we just read 37 in that sentence that leads up to question number 38. So we have these colleges concluded, 1994 survey concluded that only 18% required at least one philosophy course. And then the statement after that says, between 1992 and 1996, more than 400 independent philosophy departments were eliminated. So we have two negative things in a row, in a way. So we have only 18% required at least one philosophy course, and then 400 departments, philosophy departments, were eliminated. So I want something that kind of adds on to that. It looks like we're just kind of saying one bad thing and another bad thing. So it seems like we're just kind of going like in addition to, in a way. We're just mentioning one example and then another. So I want an answer choice that's going to do that. It's not going to be therefore, because that's cause and effect. So we're more mentioning one bad thing and another bad thing. So this, we say thus would it match. Moreover looks good, however is a negative trigger. So this one is going to be C, because we're taking some information and adding on to that information. And again, if you did think it's cause and effect, here's the problem. A and B are both cause and effect, so it would be kind of hard to figure out which one to pick, but it's not. So again, C is just adding information, and that's why we pick C for number 38. Next up, number 39 says, which choice most effectively combines the sentences at the underlined portion? So with this one, we have to obviously read the two sentences and find the best version that combines them. So that seems easy enough. I'll start with the sentence that starts with also. So it says, also studies have found that those students who major in philosophy often do better than students from other majors in both verbal reasoning and analytical writing. 39 says, 39A, we'll just go both verbal reasoning and analytical writing as measured by standardized test scores. Now this one, there's no real issue here. So A is probably going to be the right answer, because notice this is the shortest. There's nothing wrong there. Here's the issue, though. These results is kind of redundant. It's like the results are... we already been mentioning results. That's already been mentioned in the previous portion of the sentence. So I don't need to say these results, because it's obvious that we are referring to those results. So we have a little bit of redundancy. And once you recognize you are testing redundancy and you notice that the shortest answer is good, pick the shortest answer. So 39 is going to be A. So that moves us on to number 40. It says, on the graduate, on the GRE. Let's just do it that way. So I'm starting here. So on the GRE, for example, students intending to study philosophy in graduate school. So here we're talking about has scored. Now I'm thinking has, have. So has versus have, so singular versus plural. And then I have scored, scores, scoring. So I also have some verb tense to try to figure out on this one. So I have subject, verb, verb tense on number 40. So what are we referring to? What's scores, scoring, whatever? Who are we referring to in this case? So we're talking about students. So students, that's going to be obviously plural. So we're going to have to say have would be better. And then at this point, let's notice and see we have past tense. So on this test, students intending to study, we're kind of saying this is old data. This is data we've already accrued. So we should be, if this is proper, we should be in past tense based on the way this sentence is being structured. So B is going to match that. So I already know I found my answer. I don't need to keep checking, because the rest is all, as I said, verb tense. So 40 is going to be B. That has the proper subject-verb agreement and verb tense. So that leads us to number 41. So these days, many students majoring in philosophy have no intention of becoming philosophers. So with this one, obviously we have that apostrophe there. Now remember that apostrophe means this is going to be a possessive, and we just say many students. That is not possessive. So it's not going to be A or D. So that's how you figure that out. Just look for the apostrophe, possessive. No apostrophe, not possessive. So 41 We also have majoring and major. So these days, many students major in philosophy, or we have many students majoring in philosophy. So again, it depends on the structure of the sentence. But in this way, in this one, it should be, these days, many students majoring in philosophy have no intention. So this one should be, in this case, B, because they are majoring in something. Major just means big, but majoring means you're working. That's how you properly state if you're working on a degree program or something like that, and you're majoring in that program. So 41, again, is B. 42 says at this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence. So the Greek philosopher Plato, for example, wrote many of his works in the form of dialogues. So again, in this case, main ideas. We'll look at main idea of the paragraph because of these yes/no questions. So first off, let's see what this paragraph's about. So see if it'll match the main idea. So again, these days, students majoring in philosophy have no intention of becoming philosophers. Instead, they plan, so no intention, philosophers. Instead, they plan to apply those skills to other disciplines. Law and business specifically benefit from the complicated theoretical issues raised in the study of philosophy. But philosophy can be just as useful in engineering or any other field requiring complex analytical skills. So it seems like, they're talking about how philosophy can be applied in lots of different fields. So this one we are going to say the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, for example, wrote many of his works in the form of dialogues. Isn't talking about how philosophy can be used in lots of different disciplines. It's just talking about he wrote dialogues. That's great, but there's no specifics there about how that matches the main idea of the paragraph. So I would say we want to add that sentence. I would say no, we don't want to do that. It doesn't match the main idea, and you'll notice that is generally what the explanation should be, is that, again, it doesn't match the main idea of the paragraph. 42, C says that. It blurs the paragraph's focus by introducing a new idea that goes unexplained, and that's really the key. They didn't really explain, like, okay, maybe that could fit if you explain how, and they never did. So 42 is going to be C, and that moves us on to our last two, starting with 43. So this one, you just want to see if that word, notice it says we can delete it or we can change it. So let's kind of scroll back and forth here. That, and this is what a lot of students tend to forget on this sentence. It starts with the phrase that. So pay attention to that. That these skills are transferable across professions makes them especially beneficial to 21st century students. Notice again, because of that word that, we don't need to say anything for that underlined portion. That you can get rid of it, and it does contain a clear and it is a coherent sentence. This is what we're looking for number 43. So again, if we didn't have the word that, we would need some sort of transition in there, but we don't because we started off with a phrase that said we're transitioning anyway. So we don't need that. Or we need that, but you know what I mean. So that's going to be, again, 43. And lastly, 44 says, because, I'm going to start up here, because today's students can expect to hold multiple jobs. Notice this little clause in here has 2 dashes around it. That is a non-essential clause. So, because today's students can expect to hold multiple jobs during our lifetime. Now, here, when I see our, I'm thinking of today's students. Students isn't our. I'm trying to say that word, doesn't sound good to me, but so we're not going to say that one. That's not, we're talking about something plural. So it's not going to be A or C. Ones, it sounds plural, but it, you have to say other pronouns using the word one in the sentence, which we don't have that pronoun. So students is plural, it's there. So 44, there matches students, so that's going to be number 44.